Once upon a time, in a small town forgotten by gods and men alike, was a young boy who wanted to become a famous YouTuber, and his name was Bobbert. But everybody around Bobbert told him, "No, no, Bobbert, everyone hates you, you will never be a big YouTuber." And Bob was really angry. And one morning he woke up and declared, "I curse the world, I curse all humankind." And the end of days book tag began. Prophecy, a book that contains a prophecy or promise, whether it comes to pass or not. And for this I picked Unsettled Ground by Claire Fuller. This follows the lives of two elderly twins in their 50s who live in rural England, but they're really unequipped and unprepared to face the external world because they've always been really sheltered by an overly protective mother. And one of the key elements of the story is that they've always been told that they are allowed to remain in the cottage where they currently live in indefinitely. But this promise comes into question, and it's not really clear whether it was actually been made or not. So this might be a book that doesn't necessarily suit everybody's taste because it's a very dark and very unique story, but it's definitely one that has become one of my favorite reads for this year. Apocalypse, a book that talks about the end of the world. Station 11 by Emily St. John's Mandel. And in this book, we have a pandemic that kills off 99% of the population of the world. And we follow different timelines. Some is set before the pandemic, some during, and some afterwards. So this might be something that a lot of people would not want to read right now, but as far as I'm concerned, I think it's great to put things in perspective in a way. This is a great story. It's very literary and very engaging. And part of the charm of this is also that post-pandemic, a group of people set up this theatre company that decides to just travel around and act Shakespeare's plays, even in a world where, you know, the main concern is just finding food and finding shelter in a very green setting. They still want to keep that element of humanity. It's a beautiful read and one that I would really, really recommend if you're into that sort of story. Winter, a book that talks about the end of the year and all icy and cold conditions. The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I picked this one up in summer because I didn't really know anything about it. But now in hindsight, I almost wish that I had waited a bit longer until a colder time of the year. Because this is science fiction and it's all set in a planet called Winter, which already should give you a really good idea for the sort of environment this is set in. And one of the unique elements to the story is that in this planet, humans have evolved to all be hermaphrodites. So it's a really insightful exploration of what a genderless society will look like. And it's also a place where humans are not sexually active throughout the years, but they go through these cycles where they only become active for a short period every month. So people like us would be considered perverts because they would be like in this constant state of arousal, if you like. So it's a very unique, very emotional story, very literary as well, which I think a lot of people will really love. Nighttime, a book that focuses on the night or has some interesting scenes set in the dark. A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I don't really read a lot of middle grade books myself. I tend to find them not very satisfying, but this one really stands out for the quality of the writing and of the story. And this follows the life of this young boy whose mother is seriously ill, and this monster starts to call at his window at night. And we don't really know if the monster is real, what's going on, but it's a very insightful exploration of coping with difficult situations, with grief, with loss. And it's a very clever, very emotional story that I think will really resonate with a lot of people, even if you don't usually read middle grade like myself. Later Life, a book that talks about aging or prominently features older characters. The Soul Path by Raina Wynn. And this is a memoir, so it's a true story. And it follows the life of this elderly couple who find themselves in really difficult circumstances, having lost their house and essentially being homeless. And with one of them also being terminally ill. And they just decide to start over and go walk along the Southwest Path, which is this hiking path that goes along the southwest of England, around Cornwall and Devon and so on. And we just follow their journey and the kind of mundane episodes that day by day happen to them, but also more generally their reflections about their life and what they want to do with them, even at their age. Given that now she's a published author, you can guess that this is actually a very hopeful book at the end. So it's one that I think is really underrated and should deserve a bit more traction on booktube, because I never hear anyone talking about it. Until the End of My Days, a book that you think will stick with you for life, and or that you can imagine rereading later, still getting a lot from. And for once I picked a non-fiction book here, and it's Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. And this is a very expansive summary of the history of humankind from prehistorical time to pretty much modern day. But there's a lot of like bigger picture sort of perspectives onto some of the key elements of history that humans went through. So it's not necessarily about the minutiae of who was reigning at which point in time. It's just looking at the big trends that make humankind what they are today. It's one that really, I think, sticks with you and can possibly even shift the perspective that you have on some of the events that marked humankind. And it's definitely one of those that I could see myself rereading times and again and still get something new and something unique out of it every single time. At the end of the day, a cliche or trope that annoys you. Well, there's plenty of things that annoy me, but for this video today, I've picked one in particular, and it's the way authors depict memory and memories very, very often. I actually really, really love it when authors get that right and they can really convey the feeling of how memories can be really blurry, really unreliable, really fuzzy and confusing, to the point that sometimes you're not even sure if some of your memory is that something that really happened, is it something that you made up, is a different version of what actually happened. I'm sure we've all met with friends and we remember the same event slightly different. So it really annoys me when in a book, memories are used as a narration device with a character remembering in such vivid detail and step by step in the chronological order, including what people are wearing, what people say, where people sit, like incredible amount of detail, and not just like a small scene or chunks of these memories, but like whole events, like day by day, told as a memory device. I really can't stand that, because it's just something I can't relate to, and I think most people cannot relate to that. So it annoys me a little bit. And for that one, I picked Elizabeth is Missing as an example of this. Again, it's a book that I read 5 years ago, so my memories of it are not incredibly clear, but I remember this annoying me. This follows this older character who has dementia, and she's investigating some sort of crime, but she's recalling a lot of her past in exact detail. And I know some people will say, well, you're missing the point, it's unreliable narration. It just annoys me generally as a narrative device for someone to recount events from 50 years earlier in such detail and in such amount as well, the volume of memories, where I think we only tend to remember things in isolation, like flashes of memory. So it really annoys me more generally as a narrative device. So that's my example for this prompt. Okay, I'm going to tag two amazing channels to do the same tag. The first one doesn't really need a lot of introduction, and I'm not sure why Bob didn't tag him in the first place. I think it was just trying to be shy, so I'm tagging him. And that's Erica Anderson, the master of literary fiction for BookTube. And the other one is a master of science fiction for BookTube, and it's Fit to Be Read. I hope you guys like this video. Please give me a thumbs up. Join our Discord if you want to join our community. The link is in the description box. And I'll see you the next time.